Hello and welcome to my YouTube. This YouTube is remembering the year 1971. I was 27 years old and a college student going back to college on the GI Bill after having served in the Navy. I had a double major, nuclear physics and education. I was a chief nuclear reactor officer in the Navy. So that gave me 3 years of college credits. I only had to take one more year to get a degree in nuclear physics, which I did. Richard Nixon was president in 1971. On January 2nd, a ban on cigarette advertisements on TV and radio goes into effect in the United States. On January 25th in Los Angeles, Charles Manson and 3 female family members are found guilty of the 1969 Tate LaBianca murders. This was a huge story nationwide. On February 5th, Apollo 14 lands on the moon. On February 14th, a secret taping system is installed in the White House by President Richard Nixon. And of course, this was to cause him to have to resign years later when the Nixon tapes became public during the Watergate scandal. On February 9th, Satchel Paige becomes the first Negro League player to become voted into the Baseball Hall of Fame. On February 9th, an earthquake in the San Fernando Valley results in 64 deaths. On February 20th, the U.S. Emergency Broadcasting System sends an erroneous warning across the nation's radio and television stations. It was meant to be a standard weekly test, but it was sent out as the real thing, and it caused panic across the entire country for about 40 minutes until they sent out the message saying, "Oops, sorry, just a test." On February 21st, an outbreak of 19 tornadoes rages across Mississippi Delta in Mississippi and Louisiana, killing 123 people. On February 28th, Evel Knievel sets a world record and jumps over 19 cars on a motorbike in Ontario, California. On March 1st, a bomb explodes in the men's room in the United States Capitol. The Weather Underground claims responsibility. This was a radical group, only about 100 people in the Weather Underground. On March 8th, Muhammad Ali's 31-fight winning streak is ended by Joe Frazier at the Madison Square Garden. The fight was called the Fight of the Century. On March 29th, U.S. Army Lieutenant William Calley is found guilty of 22 murders during the My Lai massacre and is sentenced to life in prison. He was later pardoned. On March 29th, a Los Angeles jury recommends the death penalty for Charles Manson and his female followers. On March 30th, Starbucks Coffee Shop is founded in Seattle, Washington. Years later, I was on vacation in Seattle, and I got up early one morning at 6 a.m. and I was just walking along the streets, and I saw this Starbucks, and so I walked in. Unknown to me, this was the very first Starbucks. And there's this huge big bronze plaque says, First Starbucks Store. Very unassuming, but there it is. On April 24th, an estimated 200,000 people in Washington, D.C., and another 125,000 in San Francisco march in protest against the Vietnam War. On May 1st, Amtrak begins intercity rail passenger service in the United States. May Day protest. Anti-war militants attempt to disrupt government business in Washington, D.C., and police and military units arrest as many as 12,000 protesters. Here you see those that have been protesting. They've been arrested, and they're inside this wire cage. On May 5th, Federal Express is founded in Little Rock, Arkansas. Now, I want to put to rest an urban legend. The urban legend says that the founder of Federal Express wrote a paper when he was in college, and his professor gave him a C- and said discouraging things about the paper. It's a nice little story. It's just not true. It's one of those urban legends. On May 30th, at a Grateful Dead concert, over 30 members of the crowd were hospitalized after drinking apple cider that had been spiked with LSD. On June 11th, Amtrak had its first fatal accident when 11 people were killed and 163 injured in the derailment of the City of New Orleans train near Taunton, Illinois. On June 13th, the New York Times begins publishing the Pentagon Papers. A federal government worker, Daniel Ellsberg, had leaked these papers and sent them to the newspaper, and they started printing them. Huge lawsuits. They prosecuted him. He was found innocent. On June 18th, Southwest Airlines begins its first flights between Dallas, Houston, and San Antonio. It was strictly a Texas airline in the beginning. On June 30th, the three-man crew of the Russian space mission Soyuz 11 returned to Earth dead. Their capsule had depressurized during the descent, and they all died. On July 13th, Jim Morrison, the lead singer of The Doors, dies of a heart attack at the age of 27. On July 19th, the South Tower of the World Trade Center in New York City tops out at 1,362 feet. On July 31st, Apollo 15 astronauts David Scott and James Irwin become the first to ride in the lunar roving vehicle, a day after landing on the moon. On August 20th, the USS Manatee, which was a Navy oiler, spills 1,000 gallons of fuel oil on President Nixon's western White House beach in San Clemente, California. On September 9th, John Lennon releases his second studio album, Imagine. On September 9th through the 13th, Attica prison riots. A revolt breaks out at the maximum security prison in Attica, New York. In the end, state police and the United States National Guard storm the facility. 42 are killed, 10 of them killed are hostages. On October 1st, Walt Disney World opens in Orlando, Florida. And this is a picture of the entire cast. On November 15th, Intel releases the world's first microprocessor, the Intel 4004. On November 24th, during a severe storm over Washington State, a man calling himself D.B. Cooper parachutes from the Northwest Orient Airlines plane, which he had hijacked, with $200,000 in ransom money, and he is never seen again. We still don't know who he was. A guy by the name of Roy Tomlinson sends the very first email between host computers in late 1971. On December 16th, the song American Pie, sung by Don McLean, is released, and it's 8 minutes long. The average record on radio is 2.5 minutes. So this thing was 4 times as long as the average song. And of course, in it, it talks about the day the music died, which was the day that Buddy Holly, Ritchie Valens, and the Big Bopper were killed in a plane crash in Iowa. On December 19th, the infamous premiere of A Clockwork Orange by Stanley Kubrick. This thing was banned in a number of countries. In fact, Stanley Kubrick asked that it be withdrawn from the market. Ironically, it was nominated for some Academy Awards in the United States. The McDonald's Quarter Pounder was introduced back in 1971. Post released a cereal called Pebbles. And I just realized I have never, ever eaten a bowl of Pebbles in my life. Guess I'm too old. The Weed Eater, the Weed Whacker Weed Eater, was introduced in 1971. And this is a picture of the inventor. I've got one of these in my garage. The crock pot was introduced. Got one of these, a very old one, sitting in our pantry. It changed the way American housewives cooked. It was a godsend to the working woman because she could put her food in the crock pot in the morning and turn it on, and when she got off work in the evening, supper was ready. IBM introduced the floppy diskette back in 1971. The 26th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, lowering the voting age to 18, was passed and signed by President Nixon. So what were we watching on TV back then? What were the top TV shows in 1971? All in the Family was ranked number 1. We had never seen anybody like this. Archie Bunker. The Flip Wilson Show was number 2, and Flip sometimes masqueraded as a woman. Marcus Welby, M.D., Robert Young, James Brolin. Good old Gunsmoke. This thing ran for years and years and years. And the ABC Movie of the Week came in as the number 5 most popular TV show. So, what new television shows debuted in 1971? Well, All in the Family was brand new, and it immediately rose to number 1. It was so popular. We had never ever seen anybody like Archie Bunker on TV. Here he is talking to Meathead, his son-in-law. Masterpiece Theater with Alistair Cook as the host debuted that year. The Sonny and Cher Comedy Hour debuted in 1971. Macmillan and Wife, starring Rock Hudson and Susan St. James, premiered that year. Soul Train premiered. This was a musical variety show with some of the greatest musicians. Here we see the Jackson 5. And Cannon, a detective. Who was born in 1971? Snoop Dogg, Mark Wahlberg. Elon Musk was born in South Africa. And John Hamm, the actor. What were the top grossing movies of 1971? Which ones made the most money? Here they are. Fiddler on the Roof made the most money that year. Next, The French Connection, starring Gene Hackman. Next, Diamonds Are Forever, James Bond. Next, Clint Eastwood and Dirty Harry. This is probably one of the most famous scenes in any detective movie. And in fact, I'm going to show you a clip from that movie that we all remembered this clip about, well, do you feel lucky, punk? Here it is.
Oh, shit. I know what you're thinking. Did he fire 6 shots or only 5? Well, to tell you the truth, in all this excitement, I've kind of lost track myself. But Ian, this is a 44 Magnum, the most powerful handgun in the world, and would blow your head clean off. You've got to ask yourself one question. Do I feel lucky? Well, do you, punk?
Hey. I got to know.
Billy Jack was one of the top highest grossing movies, number 5 that year. Who were the top singers back in 1971? Leading the pack, Tom Jones came in at number 1. Second, the Carpenters, brother and sister. Third, Three Dog Night. Fourth, Marvin Gaye. Fifth, Carole King. Those were the top 5 singers according to charts that's based upon record sales and radio plays. So what were the top songs? What were we listening to on the jukebox and buying the records, and what did the radio play? Number 1, Three Dog Night's Joy to the World. Number 2, Rod Stewart's Maggie May. Number 3, It's Too Late by Carole King. Number 4, One Bad Apple by the Osmonds. Coming in number 5, How Can You Mend a Broken Heart by the Bee Gees. And now I'd like to play and sing 3 songs from 1971.
the calling of your hearts. Rest assured this troubadour is acting on his part. The union of your spirit has caused him to remain, for wherever two or more of you are gathered in his name, there is love. There is love. Well, a man shall leave his mother, and a woman leave her home. They shall travel on to where the two shall be as one. As it was in the beginning, is now until the end. Woman draws her life from man and gives it back again. There is love. There is love. Well, what's to be the reason for becoming man and wife? Is it love that brings you here, or love that brings you life? For if loving is the answer, then who's the giving for? Do you believe in something that you've never seen before? There is love. There is love. Of your spirit has caused him to remain, for wherever two or more of you are gathered in his name, there is love. There is love. Ooh. Heaven, West Virginia, Blue Ridge Mountain, Shenandoah River. Life is old there, older than the trees, younger than the mountains, growing like a breeze. Country roads take me home to the place I belong. West Virginia, mountain mama, take me home. Country road, all my memories gather around her. miner's lady, stranger to blue water, dark and dusty, painted on the sky, misty taste of moonshine, teardrops in my eye, country road, take me home to the place I belong, West Virginia, mountain mama, take me home, country road. I hear her voice in the morning, she calls me, radio reminds me of my home far away. Driving down the road, I get a feeling that I should have been home yesterday. Yesterday, country roads, take me home to the place I belong, West Virginia, mountain mama, take me home, country road, country road.